You're going to speak up in the mic because the other one, her voice was not that loud. So now speak in the mic straight.
Am I left? Let me know, brother.
Huh? Yes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, viewers. You are watching us live on News Network. We are located at Blue City, Toronto. With me is one of my colleagues, Mama A. Toure. Mama.
Yes.
You're welcome to the news review. What we're going to do is to review the news, the broadcast items that we have, broadcasted on our platform during the course of the week. So first, you have to dilate on the Majak week. That is an activity week. We are physically.
Well, viewers, Assalamu and since the inception, Majak has never been like a program like extracurricular activities program. So this time around, it is necessary to come up with this strategy to come up with our extracurricular activity Majak students. So the event was celebrated in three days. That is the first day you have a debate, poetry, amongst other activities and news presentation. Then the final was taken to Evolution Channel. That is the third day, and the second day there was sport as well between the four kundas. That is the team Neda Hydra, team Sisawane, team Ibrahima Mamane, and then team Papurufal. These four teams together were participating at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. In commemoration of the event, the Media Academy of Journalism and Communication deemed it necessary to come up with four journalists, that is in memory of the late Deda Hydra, the late Sisi Sawane, the late Pamodu Fall, and of course the late Ibrahima Mane.
To at least held an event in the memory of these fallen heroes?
Well, the event wasn't held in memory of them, but then they just feel it necessary that the fellow journalists, that is the media workers who passed away, what do they do to make sure that the young people out there also remember that there are other people who were before us, and then those people are no more. So Majak, together with the GPU, deemed it necessary to come up with this, though there are a lot of journalists who passed away that the young journalists didn't know about, but then they deemed it necessary to come out with these four people. Best isn't known to them, but for me, I think they come up with this to make sure that the young aspiring journalists should actually know the people who were before them. Yeah.
So what lesson have you learned from this whole process? The fallen heroes have been recommended during the course of this event, and of course that will also provide a platform for the young journalists to learn best practices. So you personally, what have you learned from the event?
Well, as for me, I've learned a lot from the event, because that is wherein I've seen my fellow students coming out to display their talents in different formats, like students coming up to participate in debate competition, coming out to participate in poetry, and of course singing as well, which one might say that is not the role of a journalist, but yet we could see how talented Majak students That is why they came together to showcase their talents, of course, to the whole world, because I could say the Majak week went viral. So to me, it is the learning point there is I've learned a lot from my colleagues who presented news. There are ways that I didn't know that I've done, that I've seen. So definitely I've learned those things in them.
One of the personalities present was Fatu Kamara. When we talk about online media, Fatu Kamara's name must pop up. And she was identified as a guest speaker. She has given a word of encouragement to the budding journalists. What could you tell us about her deliberations at the
Well, Fatu Kamara, I could say, is a mentor to the entire media fraternity, I would say. Because today, if you should ask a lot of journalists about about what motivated them to go into journalism, who do they look at that motivated them to go into the field? A quite number of us will say it's Fatu Kamara. So that alone has given Fatu Kamara a name. But then during her deliberation at the ceremony as a guest speaker, the CEO and founder of the Fast Network, that is Fatu Kamara, encourage journalists, the young aspiring journalists, to always try to be credible. That is, according to her, the clicks. Some follow the clicks, some like the 1K likes and the likes. But then, what we should look at as young journalists is our credibility, because our credibility matters a lot. And further urges we the aspiring journalists to always show our work within ourselves before giving our work out, because according to her, whatever you publish is gone. Therefore, you will start seeing screenshots. So it is better to have a unit of seeing your work to each other than the work to be on the social media. At the end of the day, you will see a lot of screenshots. So your credibility there matters a lot. So she encourage a lot of young journalists to be credible in their work.
So away from the Majak event, if also a Kairaba News Network was dispatched to the nomination venue at Brikama, where a lot of candidates presented their documents before the IEC. And one of the candidates that you witnessed presenting his credentials before the IEC was Mahmoud Sabari, who subsequently, got rejected by the Independent Electoral Commission. Could you please elaborate more on this story?
Well, as for me, Mahmoud Sabali, amongst other people, by the Jane Commission white paper that was given to the public and to the government as well, it indicates that Mahmoud Sabali, Nuatur, amongst other people, are not supposed to hold any public accounts. But then, we've also seen that there are people who were denied to hold any public office and are still holding public office. And in that case, even if the Independent Electoral Commission's returning officer, Mr. Seka, is to reject Mr. Sabali, he then should have done it like the other way. That is, in my presence, though I haven't covered the entire nomination at the Independent Electoral Commission headquarters in Bikama, but the days that I have covered, I've seen the returning officer, Mr. Seka, telling other aspirants to go and will be called, because their papers, that is their documents, will go under public scrutiny. And if their papers go under public scrutiny, they will be called again to be told whether they are qualified to participate in the upcoming parliamentary elections. And that is the formal way that he did to others. So the question now is, where did Mr. Robert Seka went straight to Mamadou Sabali's face and tell him that you aren't qualified to participate in the upcoming parliamentary elections? If he had done that, because he did the other way to the others by telling them that you will go under public scrutiny, and whatever is finalized, you will be called, and your team will be called to know whether you are qualified or not. Now the question is, why didn't he do the same thing to Mr. Sabali as well?
Some of the members of the public were outraged about the behavior exhibited by some of the UDP militants at the spot, who took the law into their own hands, as described by others. one could have said, okay, why can't they wait till the matter is taken to court, or they could, they could take that matter to court, and the court will decide whether the action of the IEC is in line with the law or not. So, don't you think they should have waited until the matter is addressed in court before they take laws into their own hands to express, to vent their anger to the IEC?
Well, I'm not being PR in this case, but here, if you come to think of it, if Mr. Robert Sek, that is the returning officer at the Vilkama IEC regional headquarters, if Mr. Sek cannot wait to tell Mamadou Sabal to come another day, then why should the UDP people also wait for the court to make its decision? Because come to think of it, other candidates were told that you will be called to know whether you are qualified or not. So why is Mr. Sabali rejected at that spot? The question is in that format. So now, how do you intend to calm that situation? Because I will not, it is not my own word, but in the Gambia today, in our societies, they term the UDP as people who take laws in their own hands. Now, if they know that the UDP, as they claim that the UDP take laws in their own hand, why didn't they tell Mamadou Sabali to come another day to know if he is qualified or not, instead of doing that at the spot when they know very well that the UDP supporters are out there and other candidates also who are to submit their credentials are also outside waiting for it. They could have taken Mamadou Sabali as the last candidate to come and pass his credentials. Better still, they could have also waited until the scrutiny was done and the lights come back, call Mamadou Sabali and tell him, according to this section of the constitution, you are not allowed to participate, instead of telling him in front that Mamadou Sabali, you are disqualified by this section of the 1997 constitution, and of course as the Jane Commission white paper reveals as well.
It is being published on our platform this morning that Mamadou Sabali has taken the matter to court. So on Tuesday we expect to see a deliberation around this area. So you've also published a story about an individual who is a youth, also expresses his intention to contest in the forthcoming parliamentary elections in Congo South, who is known for the person that Mr. Koli, Babukar M. Koli. We've witnessed a sudden turn of Babukar Koli from being a barrister to now taking up politics, as a role. So I want you to talk to me about this Babukar M. Koli, because you had an interaction with him and you know a little about his programs. Could you tell us some of these programs that he has presented to the people of Commercial?
Well, according to the Bokar FM Koli, Bokar FM Koli was called to bar recently. That was I don't know, in January or so. So he was called to bar as barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of the Gambia, and then he was working with the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Bokar FM Koli said he came into politics to salvage his people. According to him, his people are not given the right treatment that they need, that his people are in hardship, and the MP for their constituency those days haven't done a lot that needs to be done. So he said that is something that prompted him to come. And according to him as well, if he is to be voted to the parliament, the environmental laws are going to be implemented. And when asked, is the environmental laws not implemented, in his strongest voice he said no. He said the environmental laws are not implemented, and that you could even see that there are some problems in their constituency when it comes to environmental matters, that he said if he has the mandate to be at the parliament, he will work with them.
This same person, Babukar M. Koli, have stated that when voted into the parliament, he's going to collaborate with the rest of the members of the parliament to revive the draft constitution that was expunged by the current sitting members of the parliament, through which many describe as partisan interest. So are you optimistic that this is something that he may likely, action when he comes to power?
Well, as he claimed that if I am voted into office, in his own voice, if I am elected in office, I will work with my colleagues, the young people I am seeing vying for the position of being an MP in the parliament. I will work together with them and see that the draft constitution is implemented. So let's see if Bokar FM Koli, independent candidate for Kombosar constituency, is voted into the parliament, if he is going to work by his promise, because he promised that he is going to work with his fellow young MPs who are coming up to make sure that the draft constitution is implemented. So let's see if he is really going to implement that.
When you look at the number of the people vying for the parliamentary seat this year, it seems that the youth definitely form a greater percentage, and that seems to be a hope that the youth are now taking up the leadership role. Are you optimistic that we may see a parliament that is occupied with young people this time?
And even if that is very, very, very good, I would say, because because if you see, youth youths, they relax a lot. Youth relax a lot, giving the floor to the elderly people for them to go to the National Assembly. They've given the elder people the opportunity to go to the National Assembly and represent them well. But if you see youth now coming up with this with the challenge of going to the National Assembly, then you know something is wrong somewhere, and that's something that is wrong somewhere. That means the opportunity that they have displayed to these elderly people to go to the National Assembly and represent them, these elderly people haven't met what these youth want. So therefore they feel that if they are at the parliament, it is best time for them to stand up, tighten up their belt and go to the parliament and make sure that the things that the elderly people were unable to do for them, let them stand up and then do it for themselves. So I believe that if they are to be in the parliament, they are really going to make a change in our societies.
You have developed another story where market vendors and women that came to the market located at Coastal Road expressed the concerns that there is surge in the price of basic commodities, and they've also called the government to intervene in trying to address this increase in the commodity prices. When you were looking at this story, what motivated you to go into writing such?
I can say every individual in this country who will stand today and say that the Gambia is going fine, though I might seem young, but then this doesn't matter, the age doesn't matter in this case here, because today what I am buying a certain thing at and how much I used to buy it those days are two different things. So then I feel like it is a story that it matters a lot that the story should come up. People their voices need to be heard, and in trying to be the voice, to give the voice to the voiceless, let us go to the market. And then we went to the market, but could you believe me, some of these vendors, the buyers at these various markets, will not even want to talk to you, because they will tell you that we have been talking for long and the government hasn't intervened. So even if we are to speak today, it won't change anything. But it was due to it was due to us being able to convince them enough for them to come up and speak to us. That is how we interacted with them. And some of these people, imagine a pot of oil, and I mean the oil that you will buy at $7.50, according to the buyer, you will buy that at $7.50 butut. Those days has transformed to $10. From $10 now, if you want to have a pot of oil, one pot of oil is $25. Imagine a pot of oil that was $10. This is really sad for us and for our mothers who are toiling day in, day out to make sure that we have everything in our on our table. So
if I am lucky to go out there, have an interview with these people, that is our mothers, explaining all these things to me, it is really sad. But then, is the government really doing what they're supposed to do? This is our question. So the government, I think it's high time they started knowing what the people are facing, because I know already they know everything, but they are not taking a step towards that, and that if they don't do, this will help our economy.
In your interaction with those vendors and the women that you found in the market at the time of doing the story, what have you concluded to be the cause of the price increment? Is it the responsibility of the government or the business community, according to what you have gathered?
Well, according to what I have gathered, you know, when we say the government, it is not like we specifically referring to President Adam Abado. Now, when we say the government, we all know that in every government there are sectors in it, and in the sector you have the trade sector. So therefore, I think it is the role of the Ministry of Trade to come up with a strategy to make sure that the price that are getting high every day, whether you know it or not, if you should buy something today, imagine a jimbo that was cost, I don't know, $1 or so, it's now $2.50 a mere jimbo. So how do we expect to live? But what I tell people is that, in my own perception, what I tell people is that we the ones who vote these people into office, we are suffering every day and night, toiling to make sure that we get these things. But do you know, these people do not even know the price of these commodities. Now, if they should look at the work of the journalists are toiling every day, whether you know it or not, newspapers, on TVs, on the likes, you will see journalists reporting about this price, this high of basic food commodities. But the question is now, are the relevant authorities taking their step towards this? The answer is no. The trade ministry will come up today with the press release saying that our government or our ministry is trying to do this and this and this and this. The thing is, not trying to do this, do it. This is why you are put in that place. Try to see. And the trade ministry, they should be able to have mechanisms to make sure that prices are controlled, and not to tell us that we are trying this and that. So actually, it is not about President Adam Barrow only, but then in his administration, there are really needs. That is a trade ministry, they need to double up their efforts.
Alright, so thank you so very much. If the Ministry of Trade are watching, Mama is challenging you to take action and not to, promise to say I'm doing this and when nothing is done about it. So Mama, finally we looked at the trade fair, which you have gone to cover on behalf of Kairaba News Network as well. You had an interaction with the vendors that are there, also with some of the officials in charge of this organization. This year's trade fair, we've learned that they have almost about 500 stalls, and they are it is an international trade fair in the sense that participants are derived from across Africa. Could you please tell us more about this story?
Well, the GCCI International Trade Fair that is ongoing right now at Bursubi turntable behind the GNPC petrol station. Well, our first encounter with them was the time that they tried to shut up the place. So that was what they were expecting from the people who come and then buy their goods. And then we could also see that we talked with the officials that were responsible for the program, the organizers of the event, I mean. So when we did that interview with them, the authorities said that this time around they're having 500, I think, stores at Bursubi, behind the GNPC petrol station. But then when asked why did they come to this place, she said here is their own territory, but then the other place, the Independence Stadium, is kind of small, so then they deemed necessary to come back to this place because this place can contain over 500 souls. So that is why they come to this other place instead of the other place. And then she said that they organize this trade fair for young people and people who are also involved in trade to come up and showcase what they have, because you could see that if you go around the place you would see people having making things at that spot, because this Ghanaian lady that I interviewed was having these beautiful handbags, the bag that I admire a lot, but then it is kind of costly, so I was unable to buy it, but the bag is so beautiful. Imagine that bag was made by her, but very beautiful. The bag is so beautiful. So you see, those are the things that people should look at and emulate. These people are, because according to her, since the inception of the trade fair, she has not been coming, but her friend who was at the trade fair inspired her to come to this place because she had a lot about the Gambia GCCI trade fair, and then she said this time around have to go there. But believe me, the materials that you will see at the trade fair, these things are really good. So then there comes the importance of young people, what young people are doing. So I think it is very important that young people also venture into this trade and the likes.
Thank you so very much. That was Mama A. Toure, my colleague in the office. I am Alkali Cham. This type of program will be coming quite often. We are located at Bruce Lee Turntable, and you can follow us on all social media platforms. We have a very interesting programs that will come your way. We want you and your friends and any other person to subscribe to our social media platforms. And thank you so very much. Until we come your way again, I am Alkali Cham.